Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Elmer Brown Enriquez, your host of Artistic Visions, the show where we like to go in depth with young artists at OCAD, talk about their art, what they like to talk about in their art, and what they would like to talk about in their art. Today, I got a very special guest for a special GradX episode, Caro. Simon, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's a little chill day, a little slow day. I feel a little tired. I feel like
Me
everyone's
too.
getting fatigued, but that's fine. We're at the last minutes of the school year, and GradX is coming. And you know what? Let's just go into it. Who are you, and what kind of art do you usually make?
I'm Caro. I'm from Belgium, Luxembourg. I'm an interdisciplinary artist, and I work in the medium of sculpture, installation, analog photography, poetry, and printmaking.
Yeah, and going into this first piece that you're showing at GradX, which you call...
Residuum, or something that remains, continues to exist when other things no longer do.
Yeah, what would you like to say about this piece?
It's talking about underground urban infrastructure, and it's sort of pushing those forms into an abstraction and reevaluating the potentiality of urban infrastructure to become more than material entities. So envisioning them in new realms.
Interesting. Yeah, because when I was looking at this, I found it so interesting because you have, I think one of my favorite images out of this was this, and it's because it almost feels like a balancing act. And I don't know, I with infrastructure that we see, I think what I kind of attribute this to is like TTC tunnels, and like for some reason, because you're saying underground structure, and one of the biggest stations that I think we see a lot is St. Patrick's Station, and that one's like you're bare bones at this point, and there's no panels.
It's gnarly.
Yeah, it's crazy, and you're seeing the backbone of like how it's held up and
how
stuff.
it functions.
Yeah, and I'm intrigued. What kind of drew you to using these kind of materials?
In my practice, I use a lot of industrial materials, and I like to push the aesthetic of that. Also, it's interesting to reuse the same materials that I use for urban infrastructure and then transpose them into something that's almost it, but it isn't. And like kind of bridging the invisible with the visible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think, I kind of understand that. And what are we seeing with these specific forms? Like, what are you trying to show with these forms? Because I notice you have these kind of cube figure, kind of square, but we also have these kind of pillar looking figures, and I'm kind of interested in what they mean individually and maybe together.
Where there's like three sets. There's this one, and then the 8 feet tall one, and then there's the Jenga, like a lot of people call it Jenga.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why, it just came up so many times. Yeah, this one are like sets of anti-monuments. Like the work itself is about urban infrastructure, but also this idea that what if the infrastructure becomes an anti-monument, so something that's non-representational, something that goes against the idea of what a monument is, so there's no commemoration at all. And it becomes like, it's like three sets of non-cultural monuments, so they become just like entities that exist and collide together in that space.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's really awesome to see, because like although they have different forms, like I definitely see like a lot of the materials being used throughout like all of them and very similar, so they give that same aesthetic that you're talking about. But also I think with the different forms, it starts making me think about like why would these, like what did these mean on its own compared to these other set or this other set, right? And I'm really intrigued by that.
I think it's not so much about what it means, it's about how it makes you feel, because what I'm also trying to do is like bridge the relationship between the body and infrastructure, and how how we interact with urban infrastructure in the environment that is very like rigidified and monitored, versus here it's almost like those permissible interactions are eradicated, and you're just confronted with something that you've never seen before because it's always underground. But throughout the whole series, there's also these dents that are coming back in a way to as a reminiscence of the catch basins, because that's the underground infrastructure that I took as a reference. Yeah.
Wow. No, I see. I don't know that much about the underground infrastructure, but but I think with you talking about it in this way, I think it really opens up that idea of like, oh, there's more to think about than just, oh, well, this is just underground. It's keeping us up here at least, but there are these things where, maintenance is needed and all that, and rethinking of the structure is always needed as well. So to, especially in a city that's hundreds of years old.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary knowing that we have a lot of underground openings, and this whole subway system is right under us.
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting what you're talking about, and also just mixing the materials as well. Like not just what was the gray? Is it concrete or is it?
It is plywood and then wire mesh and then concrete.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. There's other like adhesives in it and sealants, but it's just surface.
Yeah. To mix it with this wood as well, and to like kind of rethink of it, and just instead of, because I think I'm comparing it to Subway. That's like my main
that's fine.
Of underground, but like it's purely like concrete and steel and all this, and it's like this could be easily like rusted out and get weak, and also with concrete, with like water, it could be like easily just damaged like little by little, but it can still be damaged and really crumble on its own. So I think it's really interesting to look at it in this way, and I'm really excited to see it in person. May 1st to 5th at Grad. Do you actually have a room?
I'm at Ignite Gallery.
Oh, in the Ignite Gallery, that's right. So check it out if you have time. Please do, because it's going to be some awesome work. This is amazing. I would like to move on to my next question, however. What kind of messages are you... I mean, you already touched on this before, but I'll just ask it again. What kind of messages are you kind of trying to tackle on with this thesis piece?
I'm trying to tackle on issues of like the distance modes of interaction between bodies and infrastructure, and also kind of tackling the anti-aesthetic within the urban environment, and pushing the boundaries of what urban infrastructure can be or become, and how abstraction can create like a new terrain, like a new metabolism of work. Yeah, my work is pretty abstracted, so it's basing on something real, but then it's removing it from its site and time. And it's also a big question of like water politics, because those catch basins catch the residuum of the city, so all the detritus and stuff, until it goes into the sewage water. So it's about like who owns the water of the city, talking about land appropriation, talking about commercialization of water. It's all that discussion about what is beyond just urban infrastructure. There's also this whole system of like stealing,
or like
taking away from citizens and from original landowners.
I kind of like, I'm going off topic here, but the Ontario Place for All, like the spa, which is literally like set on like one of the bigger lakes of Ontario, and we're a stadium-sized spa. Like there's no... That
profits like a minimal amount of people in the city, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's this whole privatization of infrastructure that's really deafening and sad.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'll give it back on topic, however. I do want to ask who or what was kind of the inspiration behind when you were working on your thesis piece?
I have been following Philida Barlow for the past 5 years. She unfortunately died last year, but she had a big exhibition at the MoCA last year until this year. And it's just like the monumentality of her work, and also the anti-monumentality of her work. This idea of like process-based work and like unaesthetic materials used to make extremely large work. I think she's probably one of my main influences for that work. She also managed to liberate my mind, because I'm very analytical, and I just started trusting my instinct a bit more and playing around with materials until I got to something that I was happy with.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the inspiration for a tall monument with this piece, especially with, I believe you said 8 feet tall.
Yeah, they're very large. They're larger than a human. Yeah.
Yeah. At this point, I don't think there's any 8-footers out there. If you're 8 foot, maybe go check. Yeah. Come check out the piece and see.
You might be bigger.
I do want to kind of throw it back to the first year that you maybe were here at OCAD, how would you compare your first year to now, with your art?
Oh, way more confidence.
Oh yeah.
Way more confidence, way more intuitive. I trust my guts. And also I know where I'm going, sort of. At least I know what I want to produce, versus in first year it was kind of just more experimenting. I still had a very big preoccupation with the urban environment, but I couldn't really tackle exactly what it was that interested me, versus now it's kind of like blooming. I know what I want, but I also know what could happen in those in-betweens, where I'm like, oh, I could experiment with this material. What could that bring me? Versus in first year I was holding it back a bit. Yeah, staying in my comfort zone, but also not knowing where my discomfort is. Yeah.
And I mean, you do like kind of frequent the wood shop a little bit, right?
Yes.
And those shops. So like, of course, you're seeing all these different materials, and you're like, well, I think I could play with that, but I don't know yet, right? So, and to get to that point where you're like,
assertive.
Yeah. And you're like, what can I do with this? Like, and seeing what future paths can lead to what you can do. I think that's really cool. That's a cool way to look at material.
Yeah.
Especially.
But what I learned too, especially in thesis, is that you won't know until you start making it. There's no need to intellectualize and analyze everything if you haven't even tried the things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because that's how the work will talk back to you, and then that's how you make progress.
Wow. Yeah. No. Yeah. You can tell you've used a lot of materials and just dealt with a lot. Maybe you can talk to this about that. But my next question would be, which is the final question of the interview, sadly, going back to your first year self. What kind of advice would you kind of give to yourself now, knowing all the things you do know, to your first year self?
Do it with fear.
Oh, okay.
Do it with fear. Do it when you're unprepared. Do it when you're doubting yourself, because by doing, you'll get somewhere. You can't just stay in your bed thinking about the project. You have to go out there, seek responses, seek help, and then do it.
Yeah. And like I said, like you're in the workshop, right? So you do have those peers and, people working at the workshop helping at 24/7, maybe not 24/7.
Almost
24/7.
That work in the shadow, most technicians, that help us a lot.
Yeah.
As thesis students too.
Yeah. And they for anyone that has questions, they need answers to, you can go to those people, and maybe not everyone, because maybe everyone's working on something, but they're there for a reason. They're there to support.
It's a community. Yeah.
Yes.
Everyone comes from different backgrounds with different skill sets.
Caro, thank you so much for coming on the show. But before we end off this episode, is there anything you'd like to plug, promote, or put out there for the world to know?
Well, visit Ignite Gallery. The 4 sculpture and installation people that got the award will be there. We're all very happy.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Yes, congrats about that.
Full women, so that's really important. Just come along, and we'll be there to welcome you and explain whatever you need to know. Yeah.
If you want to inquire about that 8-foot, sculpture. And yes, do check it out at the Ignite Gallery, May 1st to 5th. Yes. But, all of OCAD was going to go crazy with all the grad acts. There's a lot of people
A lot of talented people.
A lot of talented people this year. Caro is not shy of any of them. They're up there with all of them. Again, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I hope you had a good time as much as I did interviewing you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for watching this episode of Artistic Visions. I cannot wait to see you guys very, very soon. Take it easy, and hope you have a good rest of your week, weekend, or general day. Bye.